Hey guys, welcome back to The Binger. We've met tons of incredible Disney characters over the years, but what about the ones we don't get to see? Throughout the movie-making process, many animated wonders get scrapped. It's a crying shame, but you can't include every doodle. Join us as we take a look at the canceled Disney characters you never got to see until now. A lot of emphasis is put on Belle as a solitary loner. She's unlike other girls in her town. While they're all looking at Gaston's muscles and thinking about their hair, Belle is walking around with a book. It's what makes her so special. Props to writers for this Disney princess with a brain. She lives a solitary life alongside her dad, Maurice. Things could have been quite different if writers chose to broaden Belle's family like originally planned. Two evil sisters were included initially, as this is what happens in the fairy tale. These were pushed aside to make way for one deplorable aunt and a little sister, Clarice. Disney could have missed a trick with Clarice because she sounds brilliant. Sadly, the studio chairman didn't like this version of the movie and asked the writers to come up with something new. Luckily, the movie totally works the way it is, but it's still sad that Clarice ended up on the scrap heap. Ariel is the misunderstood teen of the underwater world, going against her dad and doing what she wants. Most of us snuck out of our rooms, but not Ariel. She essentially leaves the country to pursue a boy. No wonder King Triton was peeved. Throughout the Little Mermaid's adventures, she always has her little buddy Flounder. Flounder isn't as confident as his friend and is often the voice of caution. While there's an undeniable bond between the little fish and Ariel, he didn't exist until late in the game. Ariel's OG companion was an excitable dolphin called Breaker. Breaker was the antithesis of Flounder with a mischievous but caring personality. According to writer and director John Musker, the production team was told that there were too many characters. Musker and the team were disappointed to put Breaker down, so they transferred some of his characteristics to Ariel. Some of Ariel's lines were even Breaker's at one point. The end result was a more well-rounded mermaid with a contagious spirit. Still needing to give Ariel a friend to vent to, Flounder was created. His role was much smaller than Breaker's was, but it still works. On a visual level, the smaller character looks better in the frame along with Sebastian. All's well that ends well, right? The production staff was reluctant to scrap Breaker altogether, so ended up including him in Under the Sea. He swims by when Sebastian is doing his thing. The Lion King focuses on Simba, how he struggles after his dad's passing, and his rise to claim back the kingdom. However, one key part is also the romance between him and Nala. The two start out as just good friends when they're little, before reuniting again in the future and making big, googly heart eyes at one another. Along the way, Simba is backed up by his bonehead friends Timon and Pumbaa. These two mischievous, well-meaning guys have some of the best moments in the entire movie. Nala, on the other hand, pretty much rides solo. It wasn't intended to be that way, though. Originally, Nala's gang consisted of Mitu, another lion cub, and Bati, a bat-eared fox. They were adorable animations, but due to time constrictions, they were let out of the final edit. Why? Well, Nala's gang just wasn't as important as Simba's. While they were a nice addition to things, the story went along just as fine without them. Little Mitu was also Nala's brother, so it would have been nice to see that dynamic play out. Bati, just like Timon, was somewhat of a joker. We'll never know what they could have offered to the story, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Pocahontas is a dreamy movie full of catchy songs about the wonders of the world. Plus, it's got that talking tree thing going on, and that just rocks. Who doesn't want a wise old willow to guide them through the world? It's like an earthy therapist. As the princess navigates through the difficult terrain of love, she's accompanied by her animal friend Miko. However, the cute raccoon doesn't talk. He clearly has a personality that shines through, but unlike some other Disney movies, he's totally mute. Originally, Miko was a turkey called Redfeather, voiced by the late great John Candy. Writers were so keen to have Candy on board that they wrote the part of the sassy, sarcastic bird especially for him. Sadly, the comedic actor suffered a heart attack before production started and passed away. Unwilling to find someone else to be Redfeather, the studio decided to cut the character completely. In a complete turnaround, Disney opted to have all the animals stay silent. It worked, but it would have been great to hear Redfeather in all his glory. Candy had a few unfinished projects at the time of his passing, as well as 2 unreleased movies. His final movie hit theaters a year after his untimely demise in 1995. Sadistic Sid is one of the most hated Disney characters ever invented, right? Toys are so beloved that the idea of them having actual souls and feelings feels almost natural. Sid making those toys into horrible mutant-type beings or destroying them altogether is just deplorable. As far as kids go, Sid was the worst of the worst. It's a miracle his mother didn't send him off to army camp. When Buzz and the rest of Andy's toys were in Andy's room watching Sid do his thing in the yard, a toy was supposed to come forward. A planned sequence involved the retelling of what happened to a particularly ill-fated plaything, Shakes the Rattle. According to the storyteller, Shakes ended up in Sid's possession by accident. While no one in Andy's room knew what happened to the lost little guy, they could hear the screams. Sounds horrific for a kids' movie, doesn't it? The scene was supposed to hype up Sid's debauchery before Buzz and Woody end up in his room. Ultimately, though, it was deemed too terrifying to be kept in the final cut. Tim Allen and Tom Hanks went so far as to record the dialogue for the sequence, but it went unused. Kids would have been left shaking in their boots, but we can't be the only ones that are intrigued by the whole thing, right? If you thought that Pocahontas was the first Native American Disney princess, then you're right. But she's not the first Native American character that went into development. Decades before the raven-haired nature lover came onto our screens, executives were throwing around the concept for Hiawatha. In fact, there was an animated short released in 1937 called Little Hiawatha, which followed a small boy. Much like Pocahontas, the proposed feature-length movie would have focused on a real Native American character. Although it would have been given the animated treatment and left out some of the less PG details. Sadly, for one reason or another, the movie went past the preliminary stages. Maybe it just wasn't the right time for it. The incredible detailed artwork didn't go to waste, so that's one saving grace. When it came time to make Pocahontas in the 90s, animators took back the artwork from Hiawatha for inspiration. All those beautiful red hues and earthy browns were likely pulled from that storyboard. So even though we never got to see the Big H do his thing, at least we know all the work didn't go to waste. Who knows, maybe Disney will get around to doing something more substantial with it in the future. Now, here's everyone's favorite streetster, Aladdin. By now, we all know the tale by heart. The poor orphan struggles to make ends meet living on the streets of Agrabah. To eat, he steals scraps of bread and spends his day avoiding the police. By police, we mean scary-looking guys with swords. One of the things that makes Aladdin so endearing is that he's completely alone besides his pet monkey. It's just him against the world. It's really sad when you think about it, and might explain why he becomes so obsessed with Jasmine after knowing her for a short while. When the writers were trying to figure things out, Aladdin actually had a mother. In the original draft of the story, Aladdin tries to make his poor mama proud, but she discovers he's been stealing. Mama ain't happy and encourages her son to make an honest living. With no money and nothing to eat, Mommy Dearest gives Aladdin her engagement ring to sell. This is the turning point for the titular character as he realizes he needs to be a better son. Most of the key elements in the movie went down in the same way, with one small twist. When Aladdin tells Jasmine that he's not really a prince at all, his mother is finally proud of him. Word on the street is the studio chairman didn't like this version of the movie and ordered it to be heavily revised. Why? Well, it certainly makes Aladdin less of a sympathetic hero, so maybe the chairman wanted it to be more cut and dry. The Aladdin audiences came to know and love doesn't have a bad bone in his body. It's the rise of the underdog, and everybody loves that. Poor Harold. He never stood a chance against the big bad bodacious witch, Ursula. As the primary villain of the piece, Ursula was definitely painted in a bad light. She really doesn't have any redeeming qualities at all, and that's just how we like our bad guys. We also like a little backstory, so it's a shame that this sequence got cut due to time restrictions. Harold the Merman was an ill-fated little fella that got tricked by Ursula. Writers came up with the character as a way to demonstrate the sea witch's duplicitous ways. Harold went to Ursula for help, and she agreed, but only if he could get her a freshwater lily within 3 days. Harold went away, not realizing that water lilies were out of season. What a tough break. With no way to uphold his end of the bargain, Ursula turned him into a polyp. He wanted more time, but this witch isn't in the business of doing nice things. Despite ending up on the cutting room floor, directors Ron Clements and John Musker really liked Harold. In one scene, the little polyp wearing glasses is shown in Ursula's garden, which could be little old Harold popping up for a cameo. Bless his soul. Okay, so now we've been a little creative with this one. The music box did appear in Beauty and the Beast, but it was so brief that if you blinked, you'd miss it. Towards the end of the movie, before the fight in the castle, the little guy appears on screen. Writers intended it for it to have a much bigger role at first. Let's investigate. Beauty and the Beast is largely about family. Belle's dad, Maurice, goes missing on his way to the convention. The original storyboard still had him going away, but it was to sell Belle's mother's music box. That's when he gets snaffled by Beast. For unknown reasons, the music box comes to life in the enchanted castle. In this version of the movie, the box is this cute little ornament, not Chip. When the actor voicing Chip turned in a stellar performance, writers decided to put the music box on the scrap heap and give Chip more lines. The music box sounds cool and all, but we're really glad Chip got the screen time he deserved. The movie just wouldn't have been the same without him and his mama. Remember the sweet bath scene and the way he hops into the cupboard to go to sleep? That's how to make a masterpiece right there. Which one do you wish made it on screen? Sound off in the comments. Before you go, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss a thing. Until next time, thanks for watching, guys.